Hello! Today we're going to talk about the nasal consonants. But what are nasal consonants? Well, nasals are a type of consonant sounds, and they are called nasals because during the articulation, the airflow escapes through the nasal cavity as there is a complete closure in the oral cavity. In English, there are only three nasal consonants: the bilabial, the alveolar, and the velar. And they are generally described on three bases. First, manner of articulation. Second, point or place of articulation. And third, its phonation. Okay? So first, we are going to start with the bilabial. So for the bilabial nasal M, its place of articulation, well, it is bilabial. We have to take into account the upper and the lower lips. And the position of the articulators for this sound is shown in the illustration you can see there, okay? Its manner of articulation is nasal. What it means is that during the articulation of the sound M, the two lips are pressed together and a closure is made. Then the soft palate is lowered, and consequently the air goes up the nasal cavity and passes out through the nose. Okay. Finally, its phonation. It is voiced because during the articulation of this sound, the vocal cords vibrate. Okay, but now, how to pronounce? Well, we have to take into account that the air escapes through the nose. Then the soft palate must be lowered and you have to press your lips together, vibrate your vocal cords, and then open your lips without a puff of air. M. M. There is also something we have to consider, and it is the distribution. Okay, it can occur initially, medially, or finally. Okay, for the initial, we have, for example, mother. For the medial, we have simple. And for the final, we have time.
Let's jump now to take a look at the N sound. There are some features that we would like to mention. For instance, its manner of articulation, its place of articulation, and its phonation as well. First, its manner of articulation is nasal, which means the nose plays a fundamental role here to produce this sound. Second, to produce the N sound, the jaw must drops a little at the lips part. That is known as the alveolar zone. Finally, it is a voiced sound. Therefore, once the sound is articulated, when the air goes through the throat, our vocal cords will vibrate. Regarding how to pronounce the N sound properly, we should take into account the following information. The front flap part of the tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, the alveolar zone. The soft palate is lowered. Then the air comes up through the passages, and the nose is the vibration point. We also need to be aware enough about a lack of tension required in the back of the tongue. Otherwise, a mispronunciation could take place. In that case, it will sound more likely to the NG sound, even if the front of the tongue is in the right position. Finally, we have some examples of the N sound, according to the distribution concept that indicates us where the N sound is found along the pronunciation. Let's take a look at them. So we have three different stages: initial, medial, and final. Kneel, nail, nose, and nine are the initial examples. Inside, binary, dinner, cinema are the medial stage ones. At the final range, we have chosen fin, pen, down, and can.
Now we are going to talk about the ng sound. This one is a velar nasal sound because its place of articulation is generated between the back of the tongue and the soft palate. Its manner of articulation is nasal because during this the back of the tongue comes near the soft palate and creates a closure, so the air has to go out through the nasal cavity. This is also a voiced sound because during the articulation the vocal folds have to be brayed. How to pronounce this sound? Well, the back part of the tongue stretches all the way up the soft palate. The tongue tip is forward. Also, the air comes up through the nasal passage, and then vibration takes place in the nose. Now we are going to talk about the ng sound. As you can see, in the initial level, there are no words. That's because you will never find a word in English beginning with ng or the velar nasal sound. In the medial level, we can find examples like mango, longing, hanger, and finger. And as examples of the final level, we can find words like bang, wrong, tongue, and song. We can also find this ng sound in graphemes like nk as in bank, nc as in uncle, and ng as in spring. Now that you know everything about nasal consonants in English, you just have to develop an activity. It's about answering some questions about the topic. Remember that the activity will be submitted on the Teams group.